I have no idea what I'm doing here. But this is the most fun I've been having with this module so far. Right here. More cables, more madness. More. Hi, I'm Quincas and I'm a synth DIY guy, still. I'm sorry for my long absence with the video reviews for modules and things like that. I've been super busy. I went to Super Booth. In fact, I took a lot of footage there that I haven't even published yet because I've also had a lot of commissions for composing. In January, I delivered 240 songs to an audio library. A couple of months ago, I delivered another 10 long form ones, and then I'm just about to finish another batch of 10. So I've been getting a lot of commissions for my composition work, and I've also fallen back in love with my initial instrument, which is the bass guitar. And I've been kind of obsessively practicing that and creating content about that. Some of you might have seen some of that content. I'm trying to do these bass baths, these meditations every day and do them live and get used to performing in front of a virtual audience. And so that's been taking some of my time as well. But I do have a whole bunch of modules and synthesizers that I need to make reviews of. So we're gonna start back on track with the synth material with the V4-CO. This is a wavetable oscillator module. It's also not a wavetable oscillator module. We'll get to that. But anyway, this is a very deep module. As you can see, it's very large. Let's have a look here. I printed the manual because it's pretty deep. And I've read the manual and I've experimented a lot with it, but I'm still sort of just scratching the surface. So this is gonna be an exploration that we're gonna do together. I'm still gonna be referencing the manual. I love the art by Liquid Sky Devices. They have this very alien theme. I've been friends with Liquid Sky for years now, especially my friend Carlos Slinger from New York, Brazil. He's one of the pioneers of drum and bass music, jungle music. And we've been friends for over 2 decades. He put me in touch with Ingmar Koch, who's running the Portuguese wing of Liquid Sky and overseeing the development of the devices, the equipment, the synthesizers, such as this one, right? And so anyway, this is an oscillator module, but this is also not an oscillator module, right? This manual was written by Peter Kern and Tylo Goldschmidt. It's a really nice manual, very deep, very simple language. I'll start by just describing quickly. The V4-CO is a multifunctional dual oscillator wavetable module with internal VCA, sub-oscillator, independent wave outputs, which are switchable and hackable. And this is the hacking portion over here. We'll get to this as well. It's called the glitch expander. So these go together, they're connected from the back via a really large ribbon cable. A dual 8-bit wavetables, wave shaper, and full voltage control of pitch, oscillation, wavetable sync, and mixing. Each of the 2 oscillators can be optionally configured as LFOs as well. On its own, the V4-CO is already a powerful module. You treat it as a dual oscillator module or an experimental sound source, drone instrument, modulation source with all of the raw harmonic content of 8-bit wavetables combined with analog VCA and drive. You'll find those capabilities powerful on their own, but paired with the glitch expander, you have additional options for hacking each of the wavetables bit by bit in a direct form of patchable circuit bending. Right, so this is, if you're familiar with circuit bending, it's when you get these older toy keyboards and stuff. You open it up and you find little points in the circuit that you can touch and interconnect and create interesting glitchy sounds that go way beyond the intended purpose of these instruments. And in fact, some people actually deck them out, put jacks and knobs and stuff on the panel. Some of these instruments can turn out to be really cool. I have something around here. I have a Speak in Math, I think, that's been glitched out by a friend of mine. That's what this is the concept of. So all these jacks over here are basically points in the V4-CO circuit that are made available for inner patching, feedback patching, and just glitching out and tweaking. There's an internal sequencer, there's MIDI input with a couple of through outputs, 3 trigger buttons. It's a really interesting thing that I don't really understand very well, so we're basically going to experiment with it. We're going to connect it and start just playing around and try to find interesting sounds and interesting things to do with it. Eventually, Liquid Sky is putting out a more in-depth, detailed manual of the glitch expander itself. I don't have that yet, so really I'm going to just be kind of flying blind here, but it should be fun anyway. Glitch expander also provides its own MIDI interface, bitwise operators, and internal sequencers, right, which is like just described. I put together a little skiff here. This is just a little MIDI interface to feed power to my Sensomorph keyboard and turn the MIDI into TRS MIDI, which is what we use with the glitch expander. I have the other tip of my cable here. We'll stick it in there when the time is right. So here's the overview and the specifications. This is an older picture of an older version of the module. So mine is actually the current iteration. And you have some controls here. The main oscillator, right? You have the wavetable and transpose. Sliders, these are nice, big, chunky, I think they're at least 60mm sliders, so they're very, very playable, very fun, right? You have a fine control here, knob. You have the VCA input and manual control as well. Also CV for main wavetable selection. And here's the sub oscillator over here. So you have the main oscillator, the sub oscillator. The sub oscillator also has the same controls. Now we have a global volt per octave input, a transpose input, and a sync input. Right? Then you have the audio outputs over here with separate outputs for each of the two oscillators. Each of them also gives you a square wave output, and you get a mixed output. The mixed output is the output that reflects the VCAs, right? So when you use the internal VCAs, that's reflected in the mix over here. So you can actually mix the two oscillators externally by sending it CV. There's a little display here, submix, shape drive, manual and CV controls as well. A push button encoder as well. There's a select button, right? This allows you to select which oscillator you are affecting. You enter the menu by long pressing the menu encoder. Press the select to toggle the oscillator. The select button is lit when the main oscillator is selected. So right now the main oscillator is selected, and it's unlit to indicate that the sub oscillator is selected. So you can change things on one or the other depending on the state of the select button, right? And here's the quick start page. Make some noise. So before we can even make any noise at all, I need to connect the patch here, right? So why don't we take a cable, and we'll take the mix output for now and just plug it into one of the inputs of my little mixer here. I have the Synth's black output module and the black joystick, which will be, the joystick will be our modulation source, right? All right, so I have volume and pan here basically. So I have available on this, and I have the master volume over here. You should immediately hear some sound. Try adjusting the sub and main oscillators independently to adjust the balance, right? And now is the wavetable. Now here's something that I need to explain. Like, let me turn down this for a second while I talk about wavetable. What's the meaning of wavetable? A lot of us nowadays think of wavetable a certain way, but originally it was something else. So let me explain that. I got a little confused actually, because I have the more modern conception in my mind. When I think of wavetable, I think of a table of waves, right? So you have a whole bunch of waves and you morph between them when you do the navigation, right? When you do wavetable selection, you're basically selecting between a whole bunch of different waves on a wavetable. That's how we mostly think of wavetables in 2024, but that's not how it was originally created. So the first PPG instruments designed by Wolfgang Palm, the idea of wavetable is actually one single wave, right? And you have a lookup table of the amplitude levels of different portions of that wave, right? And then when you navigate, you're navigating within that one wave within the values, the amplitude values that define that wave. So when you load up a wavetable, you're actually loading a single wave, right? And the table is those values that define that single cycle waveform, right? And then the way that you navigate and morph around is how you change the sound. Now, this is what this is. This is based on that initial, original idea of wavetable, rather than the more modern implementation idea that you find on the soft synthesizers or certain modules like the Piston Honda or the Graphic V4-CO by Ergostins, even the Dust of Time. But this one is old school. This is 8-bit processing even. So this is definitely more old school idea. It's the original idea of a wavetable. When you load a wavetable, you're loading a single cycle wave, and then what you're doing by selecting here is actually selecting the values, right? And then when you use the glitch expander, you can access these values, interpatch them in different ways. So that's an important explanation. So you understand when you get this, you're not going to be morphing between a bank of different waves. That's not the idea with this one. This is the original wavetable synthesis idea, which is based on the original PPG synthesizers by, was it Waldorf or PPG? I don't remember the history exactly, but that's the idea. So let's get back to listening to this. Let's get back to looking over here. Try adjusting the wavetable sliders for the main and sub oscillators to select different wavetables for each. You see an indication of the wavetable number on the display, right? So here it says S and it shows the wavetable. And here it says M for main and it shows the wavetable there, right? And you get very different sound. Now we can load different waves, right? And we'll get to that in a minute. Right? Okay. Let's connect my joystick to the volt per octave input, so we have a little bit of control, further control of pitch here. Channel. Right. So now I have a wider range of control. Right, and I've tuned them together now. There we go. Sounds very cool. And I've transposed. There we go. So already we're making some sounds here, right? Change the wavetable bank by holding down select and moving the wavetable sliders. For main and sub oscillator, the display shows a graphical indication of different banks. Each has 16 banks of 16 wavetables each. Okay, so I'm going to hold down select and turn the wavetable here. And now I'm changing the wave, right? That single cycle wave. And you have a whole bunch of them. And by the way, they're randomly selected at the factory. And we'll get to that. It'll explain exactly where they're getting them from. But so your V4-CO will not be the same as anybody else's. It'll have its own wavetables in there, right? So just by holding the select button and moving the wavetable slider, I'm now cycling through the different wavetables that are available. Now I let go of select and I can navigate within the wavetables again, see? Now remember, I have the select input over here, right? So that means I can use another channel of my joystick here that I can then send, let's make it an LFO. So I'm gonna go to mode, sine, right? And make like a slow LFO. And I can send these outputs to the CV inputs of the select function here. And now I'm navigating through wavetables Now these are positive only inputs, so the bottom half of my LFO here, of the joystick LFO, is not really affecting it. It's only when it goes to positive voltages. So you should probably use maybe an envelope generator instead, but this will do for now, right? Or, you know, I could use an offset module or anything like that, but this is pretty cool just to exemplify, right? And we have the attenuators here, so you can make it more subtle, more localized change, if you like. All right, okay. Now, might as well, we have the glitch expander in here. Why don't we connect the MIDI? There we go. Now this is way high. So let's go back to my channel 1 of the joystick here. And we'll bring it back down. Bring down the octave here. Right? So here I'm using it again more as an oscillator, like more traditionally, by controlling it with the keyboard. Right? It's just kind of dirty. Just clean up the silicone here a little bit. Right, cool. Let me turn down the joystick LFO here so we can actually dial in the sound. Cool. All right. Now, I don't have an envelope generator here to control the amplitudes, but I do have another channel of the joystick. It's very useful little module, this joystick. And so we can just use the joystick as a form of controlling the VCAs. So here's the VCA inputs right here, the main mix and the sub mix. Right, and right now this is it's in random mode, so we're getting like kind of a random variation of the amplitude. That's kind of cool. I like it. I was going to initially use it either manually or with an LFO, but I kind of like it. Right, cool. So you can randomly change wavetables across all banks by short-clicking the menu encoder. So if I just short-click here, I get a random new wavetable, which is, now we're starting to scratch the surface of how this module is designed. It's designed to be very experimental and chaotic. And you can do hard techno with it, but you can also use it as a drone oscillator to make experimental music. Okay. Turn up the shape mix and adjust shape drive. So yeah, oh cool. So shape mix to hear the impact of the wave shaper, right? So there's a wave shaper built into this beyond the wave tables, right? And the shape drive, yeah, it gives you this gnarly distortion. Very cool. Right, so let's turn those down, and we're hearing just a plain wavetable. We can short press here and get a different wavetable, just randomly, right? And again, I can hold select and manually select the wavetables per oscillator, like that, right? This is cool. All right. Now you've already got a lot to play with, and you may have guessed at the rest, but there are some other additional features: customizable LFO outputs and pitch range and quantization options. So let's look at the full module in detail. All right, so why not? Let's continue with the manual here. So this gives you just some letters so you know what the manual is referring to. I'm gonna leave that up there as reference for me. Quick start voltage control. Okay, let me turn this down for a second And okay, we're just droning. Let's add some additional control. Connect a voltage to change pitch. I did that already, right? I did that with the joystick. So my channel 1 of the joystick here is controlling the pitch. Right? Connect voltage to main mix to control the VCA for the main oscillator, and sub mix to control the VCA for sub oscillator. We've done that as well. I got ahead of myself here. Note that you can still use the main mix and sub mix knobs above this input to attenuate the maximum amplitude. Turn them all the way down and the VCA input will have no effect at all. So these are basically attenuators for the VCA CV inputs, right? So I can still use them to turn the module down, to each oscillator down. So they're still useful as mix knobs, even when you're using the VCA CV inputs. Right. Connect the continuously varying voltage to the main select CV input and turn up the main select CV amount knob. Right, we've done that as well. We're sending a channel 2 sine wave of the black joystick to control the wavetable selects on both oscillators. Okay, so it looks like this voltage control section of the manual we've already covered through its range, and listen to the impact on the sound. Try attenuating the range of the wavetable signal by adjusting the select knob. Depending on the bank you've selected, this may sound continuous or abrupt. Right, but you can use the attenuation and wavetable position to dial in some wavetable variation you especially like. All right, we've done that. All right, so let's have a look at the theory here. Wavetables. The heart of the V4-CO sound is the combination of analog circuitry and wave shapers with two 8-bit wavetable sources, the main oscillator and sub-oscillator. The 8-bit character of these can give you sounds that can be richly harmonic or glitchy and grimy. Think of early wavetable instruments like Ensoniq's legendary ESQ1, SQ88. On the V4-CO, these even run on 8-bit hardware. So you're not simulating 8-bit in 16-bit hardware or 32-bit hardware. These are actual 8-bit processors, an 8-bit microprocessor and dual parallel 8-bit DACs. Wavetable selection slider has 16 steps. Move the slider to shift between wavetables 1 through 16. The display will show the active wavetable. All right, let's remove all this CV stuff here for now. We'll just use the main mix. So right here, I'm moving between the 16 positions within the single wavetable. Wavetable sync input. Aha, so this is a trigger input. It's a 5-volt trigger input, and it resets the wavetable position to the start of the wavetable. Send the trigger to this input and you reset the active wavetable applied to both sub and main oscillators simultaneously. This can be used for rhythmic effects to synchronize wavetable position with other modulation, or at extreme settings for unexpected timbral results. So let's turn the volume back up and get another cable here. We'll take the gate output 4, gate 4, of my joystick, and we're going to plug it into the sync. Right. Right, so that's creating this rhythmic effect now. So that resets the wavetable to its initial position at each gate. Right? Now if we use the actual joystick output here, that works too, because as long as it passes 5 volts, it'll be interpreted as a gate. The random one, so there's like a random gate. Now let's quickly, remember just a quick press of the encoder randomizes the wavetable bank. Right? I like this one, it's kind of mellow. So yeah, all of the analog portion of the sound is only really reflected in the mix output here. Yeah, this sounds really cool. And now we really hear in a different way the effect of the rhythmic sync, right? Now what happens, for example, if I take, let's start doing a little feedback patching here. What happens now if I take the square output of my sub-oscillator into the sync input here? Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it's too synchronized, right? It's the same oscillator, so that doesn't affect it that much. But maybe if we take the joystick and we make it a really fast LFO, let's go to the LFO one here. Make a really fast LFO. There we go. And we start getting almost like a ratchet, right? Cool. And here we have our VCAs again. And look how they affect the drive and shape, right? The volume right now doesn't only change the volume, but it changes the sound as well, because it's affecting the shape, the wave shaper circuit. That's cool. So that means if I send something, if I send a CV to that with like a slow LFO, it'll affect the wave shaping as well as the volume, right? And I can also control the shape and drive directly. See? Very cool. All right, let's go back to the manual here. Wavetable sync. Modifying the wavetables. Jumpers on the back of the module allow you to customize which wavetables are available. We're not going to do that now, sorry. It's too much work to pull out the module. You will have to do that yourself. In addition to the default wavetables, each unit ships with its own custom selection of wavetables from Adventure Kid's 8-bit wavetables. Used with permission. Adventure Kid waves. These are chosen randomly for each unit at assembly, like I said. So your V4-CO will be its own thing. It's not going to sound like anybody else's V4-CO because it has its own selection of wavetables from the factory, right? Using the jumpers included in the box, you can bridge each row horizontally to enable the alternative banks. The top pins determine wavetable banks 1 through 8, and the bottom 8, 16. The main oscillator is on the left, sub-oscillator on the right, and you look at the back. As you look at the back of the board, the default wavetables will sound more continuous, but if you want glitchier chiptune style abrupt shifts between wavetables, try the alternates. Cool. There are additional possibilities for transforming the wavetables using the glitch expander covered in its own manual, which we don't have yet. So we'll do it experimentally. Okay, pitch. Control pitch of each oscillator is provided via multiple methods, which are summed. The transpose fader, the fine pitch knob, the vote per octave input, and the transpose input. You can change the quantization mode. So long press the menu to enter the menu mode. You select the oscillator you want to modify, which is lit main oscillator, unlit sub oscillator. And then you can choose the transposition mode. The active mode is indicated by the transposition lamp or LED, right? So it's dimly lit right now. So you have fully lit is quantized pitch at a 4-octave range. Half lit is unquantized fine 2-octave range. TRP is transpose. Right now I'm changing for the main oscillator because the select button is lit. I'm pushing the encoder and now transpose is unlit. Take channel 1 of the joystick here, which is manually controlled, right? and we're gonna plug it into the right. So now transpose dim lid's giving us this wide range, 4 but it is quantized, see? Half steps over 4 octaves. We'll push in here again. Why don't we turn off the sub for now? So right now, it's fully lit. We have this continuous 2 octave control, see? So this is not quantized. Now we'll push it in again. And now we have the long 4 octave quantized control. Push it again unlit and we get nothing, right? So unlit, it's off. The transpose input does nothing, but the transpose slider still does, right? So this is basically affecting the transpose CV input, right? I'm gonna leave it here on the continuous 2 octave one. I like that one. Okay. Now if I hit select here, now it'll do the same for this guy here. Let's do that. We'll see, off, nothing. And then fully lit, you get the continuous control, which I like. That's different than the volt per octave control. Volt per octave control is quantized and it's a wider range, right? So now let's turn on both oscillators. Right, so now we can get this wonky, unquantized variation. Let's hear what it sounds like if I send oscillator 2 to control volt per octave. Check that out. Now we're starting to get into some cool internal feedback matching ideas here. Very cool. All right. Look, I'm just touching the tip here. So what happens if I send... So this is like a starting to use the glitch here. Should I, or should I go back to checking out the manual? Maybe we should go back to the manual to finish checking out. Let's have a look at the LFO modes. We'll go back to the volt per octave inputs doing what they do. We'll go back to a lower octave. Now the LFO modes they're also a function over here of the menu. So LFO here. So you can turn one of these into an LFO, for example. So again, if the select button is lit, that means we're modifying the main oscillator. So unlit, we can turn the sub oscillator into an LFO. Right? So now we can turn it down from the mix, so we're not hearing it on the audio, and we can take the output of the sub and send that to the transpose here. See? Now we're using sub oscillator as an LFO affecting the pitch of the main oscillator. And cool, it's also affected by the MIDI, so it becomes a faster LFO with a higher note. Cool. Right? And then, if we change the wavetable, it'll change that LFO shape, right? And if I hold, let's get out of the menu so that I can now use the select to change the wavetable bank. And I can use the transpose to bring it down. This is cool. Very cool. And of course I can use that not just for the transpose here, but I can actually use it for the actual wavetable select as well of the main oscillator, right? So now you get this glitchy variation. Let's turn up some of the wave shaping. Here, a little bit of mix, a little bit of drive. Very cool. Right, so that's LFO mode, right? Again, long press the encoder, turn to LFO, push in, and now we're in half lit, which is super slow mode, right? So fully lit is slow mode, which is the normal LFO operation, and then half lit is super slow mode, which is, if you want an even slower. Let's hear that as a volt per octave, or as a transpose feature here. There we go. So wave shaper, calibration. Generally there's no need to calibrate to the V4-CO. It ships fully tested and calibrated. Look in the menu if you need to. Now adding the glitch expander opens up the possibilities, and the menu doesn't go beyond that. Because that we don't have the glitch expander manual yet. That's being written as we speak. So let's just screw around with it and you know, just experiment and see what happens if I start like plugging things in here. So main wavetable select. What happens if I put this one here in the volt per octave input? Now when I push the trigger, you get this kind of high thing. Yeah, I'm not even gonna narrate this part, people, sorry. I'm just gonna start playing around with the glitch expander and intuitively, and just start sending some gates. Sending some gates and triggers here and just go crazy. Let's get out of LFO mode. Now we're getting somewhere. Check it out, when I touch the cable, like I guess the capacitance from my hand does something. I have no idea what I'm doing here. But this is the most fun I've been having with this module so far. Right here. More cables, more madness. More. Square. I'll probably make another video once we have the glitch expander manual. But for now, this is wonderful madness, wonderful chaos that I got from just randomly patching things in there, circuit bending style, right? Once I have a better understanding of what these things actually do, we might be able to do a more conscientious approach. You know, there's some ands, ors, there's some logical functions here, other, you know, trigger buttons with trigger inputs, reset, things like that. But for now, I'm just enjoying the crazy madness. I think that'll be it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos coming soon. I'm getting back into the swing of content production here for the channel. Some content will be bass oriented now, and some will be synth oriented. We're mixing it up. See you soon, and stay noisy.